This is Gateway City Sports.
It's a trap! Good over Atlanta.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
How are we feeling? Vibes are low. We need a W. Keep ahead.
This is the Team of Rivals podcast.
Everything you want to hear from the big sports to the big screen.
He's all by himself, fires into the end zone. Caught! Touchdown! No! Vaughn into the windup in his first offering. Just a bit outside. He tried the corner and missed.
Doesn't like you. I don't like you either.
Time winding down. Michael for three. Yeah! Yes! She is gone! I don't believe what I just saw. Go crazy, folks! Go crazy! You believe in miracles? Yes!
You may fire when ready.
What?
Good evening, Cubs and Cardinals fans, and welcome to the Team of Rivals podcast. It's Thursday, September 28th. Oh boy. I don't know. There's not a whole heck of a lot left to say. So for that, we're going to go back in time to when you and I were young. We're going to hand it over to Dandy Don Meredith.
Turn out the lights, the party's over. They say that all good things must end. Call it a night, the party's over. And tomorrow and next year starts the same old thing again.
Look, I know I got to finish saying that you can follow us on social media, Team of Rivals Pod. Find us online at teamofrivalspodcast.com for those of you who prefer to watch the show. YouTube, Facebook, Rumble. Hit the like and subscribe, blah, blah, blah. Co-founder of TOR, number 125 in the 2022 edition of TOR, or C70's Top Cards on Twitter. Ron Nuttall. And maybe Elliott's going to join us. Who knows? He's actually in Atlanta. He was lit 3 hours ago when he sent us a pregame, or 4 hours ago when he sent us a pregame video. So I'm really hoping that he jumps on the Zoom here and gives us his full frontal drunk take because Elliott was in rare form this evening.
The first thing he sent us was a picture of him, right? Like it looked
golfing.
Like
I think he was at a Top Golf.
I thought so too, but I'm not so sure. It didn't quite, like the landscape behind him didn't quite look Top Golf-ish, but close. Maybe it was just the angle of the camera, but he was already getting tuned up, and that was, gosh, Pete, that was like at 1.
Let's see. Yeah, that was 12 o'clock Central Time. So yeah, 1 o'clock your time.
10 hours ago.
That was 10 hours ago, and he was already getting lit.
And we did get a message from him, at least on the chat. And so I can play that right now. But before I play that, I think while the audio listeners, which is only doing audio at this point, couldn't see, was Don Martin ripping a heater in that video, which I thought was the best.
Oh, Don Meredith? Yeah.
Meredith, sorry.
So yeah, actually, this would be the one time where we would say to audio listeners, you need to go over to the YouTube because I'm going to cut it in so that people can see. Yeah, Don Meredith ripping a heater in the booth during a game, and then also because you'll be able to see Elliott. And if you had any question about whether or not he was drunk, you'll be able to tell when you take a look at him. So Ron,
well, and I'm going to play the clip now. Yeah. Granted, he's probably recording this just on his microphone on his phone, and we all know how tuned Elliott is to microphone settings
and to background noise.
And to background noise. This should come as no surprise, but this is the voicemail he left post Top Golf, I think, or maybe pre.
Yep. Nope. Post Top Golf pregame.
Pre-game, but 10 hours before the end of game.
Yep.
So here you go. Elliott at his finest.
Good evening, team of rivals, peoples. Coming to you from Mac McGee's in good old Atlanta. How are we feeling? Vibes are low. We need a W. We need to keep ahead of the Marlins. Stroh needs to show. Offense needs to show up. But more importantly, the bullpen needs to make themselves known because they have been absent for the last week. Fly the W. Let's go.
So Elliott missed on every point there except for the bullpen. The bullpen actually showed up tonight. The bullpen pitched pretty well, all things considered. Marcus Stroman got lit up, gave him, 3 innings.
Right.
Offense did not show up. And as we sit to record, Ron, the Mets-Marlins are currently in a rain delay, and the Marlins have come back in the top of the 9th inning. They're leading now.
Down 1-0.
They're now leading 2-1, and they're still batting. So
and what would you – how surprised you'd be? Look, when you get this late in a game, they don't postpone it and continue.
Right.
They just call it.
Right.
And you and I are at one of those games. I believe it was like 2005 when the Cardinals actually clinched the division in Chicago. You and I went to the game.
Yep.
I actually had my brother with me. We didn't – I think he counted planes going over the ballpark. Like he really didn't pay attention at all to anything else. But yeah, the Cardinals clinched that night, but the game was called in the 9th inning.
Yep, and especially this late in the season, right? And it's getaway day. The Marlins have a weekend series starting tomorrow against the Pirates. Like, they're just going to – yeah, you're right. They're going to call this game. It's done. They're going to call it.
Yeah, they likely will. I don't know. We'll keep an eye on it.
Although you think about it, though, but given – I don't know. Now that I think about it, given the playoff ramifications.
But what about the playoff ramifications 2 nights ago?
Yeah, no, you're right. That was stupid.
That was really stupid. Because it was a doubleheader the next day, which the Mets ended up winning the first game, like 11-4 or something like that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, the Major League Baseball not exactly covering themselves in glory as we come down the home stretch, but
nor a team with a publicly funded stadium that can't get it ready for a baseball game, but can get it ready for a concert.
Right.
You got to kind of wonder, right? But whatever. I mean, at this time of year, horrible timing for shit like that to happen. And I know, Pete, that you and Elliott are feeling it because you guys are doing math right now. I haven't had to do math since like June.
Well, there's no more math to be done. I had to explain to my son, and he didn't want to hear this, obviously, but I had to explain to him when I dropped
doing homework, wasn't it? Like homework that they're quite not grasping, but you have to explain it.
Yeah, that was the problem. I had to explain the homework to him because you're right.
And he's a fairly smart kid. I can tell.
Your price can be more affordable if you bundle your home and auto.
Yeah, you're right. He is a smart kid, but explaining to him how it was that even though at the start of the game, the Cubs and Marlins were tied, and yet the Cubs were basically trailing by a game. It took some explaining for him, him to grasp they're tied, but the Marlins have the tiebreaker and they no longer play the tiebreaker. So this thing is over. He's like, wait, that doesn't make sense, Dad. I was like, yeah, I know, but it does.
Well, if results hold tonight, as we see them, mathematically certainly there's a chance. We've been through baseball enough where we know, hey, look, a team like mine who was 14 games under 500 in June, we knew it wasn't going to get any better by September. I think we maybe held out a fragment of hope for one of those 17-game Mike Schultz winning streaks to somehow get them to 500, but I think realistically we knew that wouldn't happen. So yeah, for a youngster there, you're looking at math going, hey, Dad, what the hell are you talking about? There's a 33% chance they could pull this out. We know how baseball goes.
Yeah, especially with if things end the way that they look tonight. Not only do the Cubs have to, at the very least, win the series against the Brewers, but in all likelihood sweep, They also then would need the Marlins to either get swept or only win one game from the Pirates, and that's just not happening.
Well, the one positive, I'm going to try to give you a positive, although I don't want to. You're a Cubs fan. This is a completely meaningless series for the Brewers. They have nothing to gain by winning any game. It's not like they're going to jockey for a different position in the playoffs. I mean, they've got the position they're in right now. It's locked in. They're the Central champions, but they're not the top two. You know, they're going to play the top seed of the wild card, which is looking like Philadelphia, right?
Yep.
I have that wrong.
No, Philadelphia, I think they're going to clinch it tonight.
Well, I think Philadelphia clinched it a night or two ago.
The first place, yeah. The first wild card, I think you're right. No, you're right. They have. Yeah, they have. So, I mean, that's already locked up. I mean, literally, like these last 3 games of the Brewers mean absolutely nothing. They can't lose or gain anything by it. So that's something. The one thing to be gained for the Brewers. Well, there are 2 things to be gained. One, it's to shove it in the face of your rivals, right, and keep them out of the playoffs. So there's motivation. And 2, honestly, I think I'd rather face the Marlins than I would face the Cubs. The Cubs have the Marlins have a negative run differential this year. They're going to make it in, but they're a team that has gotten by on I think they have the best percentage in 1-run games in baseball. That luck's got to run out eventually. I'd much rather if I'm Craig Counsell, I'd much rather face them. Now, I'm not gonna ask my starters to go 9 innings, but I'm going to try and win this series. I'm going to try and knock the Cubs right out of the playoffs.
Well, whoever gets the reward for the last entry into the wild card gets the Atlanta Braves. That's your reward, right? So you got a little preview.
No.
God, am I completely off here? I thought the easiest path was the best record in the National League.
No, the Brewers will play the worst wild card. And then the 1 and 2 wild card play each other. And then whoever advances out of those 2 series then faces the Braves and the Dodgers.
You're right. And how stupid am I?
Stupid. To
get the rec league playoff bracket confused with Major League Baseball, which I followed for decades. Yes, you're right. I delete all of that. Pete, when you go in and edit this, take the last 3 minutes
and just flush it.
This is how out of touch with baseball I have actually fallen to. I've actually fallen this far where I haven't been paying attention at all to what the Cardinals are doing. Yeah, of course, I looked at, I wanted to know if Milwaukee would clinch if they were playing them. And I don't know if it's fitting or not, but Milwaukee did clinch on a loss, which I thought was kind of funny.
Totally fitting. And not only that, not only did they clinch on a loss, but they clinched on a loss and the Cubs blew it late.
Let's talk about that for a second, because I know that one stings.
Wait, which one?
The drop fly ball.
Oh, okay.
That had to be the worst one.
Because they blew it late yesterday, too. They blew it late multiple times yesterday.
I know they blew it late yesterday, but we've seen our teams blow leads in save situations, like both of us have many times. But the lead blown by a drop fly ball, that's the one that has to sting, because that could have put you guys in a much better position.
Yep.
You would be going into this final series up by a game, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that would have changed, I think, the whole atmosphere and mood, but it was one drop fly ball. Now, it's hard to hang one play on one player.
Especially with the way that he's been playing this month.
And certainly you could point to other situations in the game where the Cubs could have had a more padded lead.
Where their pitching could have not shit the bed. I mean, let's not diminish the fact that they were up 6-0 in that game. It took a series of events to get it to the point where a dropped fly ball from Seiya Suzuki gave up the tying and go-ahead run. But it was already 6-5 at that point, right? So it's not like he dropped that fly ball and 7 runs scored.
They were up 6-0 in this game.
Correct. And let's just compound it. And this is why, look, we talked about it when I was down there. I think David Ross has to do some soul searching, and I think that Jed Hoyer is going to be doing some, because in that game, he subbed in his future, we think, Gold Glove winning center fielder in the 4th inning. Subbed him in as a pinch runner, had him out in center field, and then prior to that play, subbed him out for Patrick Wisdom after having had Miles Mastroboni bunt over Yan Gomes. And then, but he fails to bunt him over. So then they swap out Gomes for Mastroboni. So now you got Mastroboni on first base with 1 out. And then you take out Pete Crow Armstrong and bring in Patrick Wisdom, the strikeout machine. It doesn't work out. The Cubs don't tack on. And now you have to move Cody Bellinger out into center field. And not that Cody Bellinger is a bad center fielder by any means, but you have to move Bellinger out to center field. You got to put Wisdom in at first base. You got Suzuki and right. I guarantee you that if Pete Crow Armstrong is still in that game, that ball never makes it to Suzuki's glove. That Armstrong runs over there and he cuts right in front of him and he makes that catch, and they're out of the inning. They win the game. And nobody has asked David Ross, what the hell were you thinking there? They asked him what he was thinking when he bunted, but nobody asked him why
he's... Are you telling me like Chicago media hasn't jumped all over his ass for that?
Oh, no. They've given him a total pass. The only thing that they pushed back on him on was the bunt. And Jed Hoyer defended him, and he said, look, obviously I don't like giving away outs, but we always look back on things in retrospect. We never look at them, and whether or not they worked. And so he gave David Ross a little bit of cover, but like that's a hugely, you look at the ramifications of that one decision and the cascade of things that ultimately led to Seiya Suzuki dropping that fly ball.
I don't want to ask you how you feel, because I know I was following the game. Of course, it's on locally down here, so I could watch it. But I thought, well, you know what? Here's the thing with our show, and this is the first year, Pete. Potentially, this is going to happen. It's the first year we've done this show where neither of our teams are going to be in postseason.
Yeah.
And as much as people say you got to bleed red and believe everything Cardinal Nation and Cardinal Way to be a fan, I think also, to be a baseball fan, even for your rival in your division and people you've done a show with for 7 years, you would like to see one of them in the thick of it. Like I had to suffer through the first 3 years we did this goddamn show. I had to suffer through it, at least first 2. And, I had to suffer through it, and it kind of sucks, man, that for me to say this, I really hoping that I told you guys, I know I went out on a limb and said you guys would enjoy this year. It was going to be surprising. You were going to, have a ride. I actually wanted that to happen. So yeah, when he missed a fly ball, I'm like, that's it, man. That's a game changer. I know mathematically it was still in your favor at the time, but I just kind of had that feeling like, oh shit, that's it right there.
Well, we talked.
That's going to be the Steve Bartman moment of this year.
Yeah, probably. But the funny thing about it is that I think kind of like the Bartman moment, the signs were there much earlier, right? We talked about it when I was down there in Charlotte. I was already not feeling particularly confident. Things were starting to turn on.
Man, the odds were still in
they were still in our favor, but it felt like things were starting to slip a little bit. And over the last 2 weeks, it really has. And so, Suzuki dropping the ball, that wasn't the turning point, but I think it was the exclamation point.
Yeah.
It was that depressing sentence that finally ended there. And you're right. After that moment, I was sitting here, I was watching, and I was like, yep, the season's over.
God does not want us to be in the playoff this year. Yeah. Sorry, man.
Hey, it is what it is. And the
I experienced that in May.
The interesting thing about it is too, you're absolutely right. This has been a fun season. We've been able to root for a bunch of guys that we didn't have to have a huge investment in because we knew that they were coming through. And I have a feeling now that a lot of them aren't going to be coming back. I don't think Candelario's coming back as much as he's a fit. I think they go in a different direction because after his hot start when they traded for him in July, he really tailed off. Obviously,
isn't that the rub these days? Like, just as a fan, right? Like, I'm not saying throw all logic and common sense out, but you know, when you see a player that fits so well with the team, but math rules it out.
Yeah.
Isn't that the rub? I mean, and I've experienced that certainly throughout my fandom as well, where you saw a player was, Jesus Christ, that guy's a really good fit. No, but we're not going to spend $2 million on a second baseman.
Yeah.
You're like, damn, he was such a good person in the lineup where he was at to play his role. And I'll throw it out, you know, go back in time to 2005, Mark Grudzielanek, former Cub. You know, that 1 year he was with St. Louis. He wasn't top of the lineup. He's in the end of the lineup. He's the second baseman. But he was just such a good fit for what they asked him to do. He did what they asked him to do, and he was a cog in the machine, and a very good one. And when you see this, and you're like, like the player's personality, like how they look in the uniform, they fit really well. We had a good result this year. But I'm sorry, math just doesn't dictate that we can have a player like that at second base for $2.5 million next year. And you're like, fuck, why? That's going to throw things off way more than the spreadsheet does. And you kind of see it, but teams don't behave that way anymore. And that's why the calculus is so confusing to the common fan. Like, we're watching this, we're like, this seemed to work really well. Like, it felt well. Yep. But you're telling me, according to math, that it doesn't. I have yet to see where this math has won a World Series.
Yeah, I think I think the math, for example, isn't going to work out on Cody Bellinger as much as you're right. He absolutely fits. He's looked great. He's clearly fit in the clubhouse. But I don't think it's the dollars. I think it's the years. He's not going to be looking to take a 2-year deal. And I just don't see the Cubs going long-term on him when they have so many intriguing options in the minors.
Sound like Mozeliak a few years
ago.
Uh-oh.
I know.
Uh-oh. Yeah, I know, right?
I know. It's hard to look at guys like Pete Crow Armstrong and Alexander Canario and Kevin Alcantara and think that the Cubs aren't going to make the calculation. One of those three has to hit. And we've got Ian Happ and we've got Seiya Suzuki. And if we sign Cody Bellinger, are we really going to sign him to play first base?
And what I didn't throw out was the example I threw out, Mark Grudzielanek, would have been a 1-year deal and not like a 10-year deal, like what you're talking about, right? That's a different thing. What is that player in his camp looking for, right? Based on his time in his career. And I know that's a whole big factor. And Cody
his agent.
And his agent. And Cody Bellinger is a lot younger than what most of us think. Like, I thought he was like 36.
No, he's only like, 28, I think.
I know, but I feel like he's been in the league for like 20 years.
Yeah.
He hasn't. But look, I know math and agents don't work that way. They don't work like casual Dodgers observers who think the guy's like been in the league for 20 years, but he's in fact been in the league for like 6. All I can say is I thought you would have a collection of misfit toys this year that you had fun with, and you did.
Yep.
Part of me was hoping that the Cardinals had checked out in June, and I was hoping that at least one of our teams, for the show we do, and we've done for 7 years, we'd get to have some conversation about one of our teams in the playoffs, and this is the first time we haven't been able to.
And that's the problem with misfit toys. That's the problem with misfit toys, Ron. They're really fun to play with, but they're used and they break. And that's what happened to the Cubs. The misfit toys finally all broke at the same time.
But I feel like, and I know it's not right. I know I'm not right about this. I feel like it came down to one catch.
Nah, it didn't. I mean, if you look at the way that they've played over the last 2.5 weeks,
I know you've been saying that,
building to it.
Them as close as you. So
sure.
To me, outside casual observer, I feel like shit. This really came down to one catch. But yeah, of course, I know they could have been up by 4 runs and we're only up by a few, right?
And Elliott alluded to it in his, monstrosity of a recording that he sent us. The bullpen is completely beaten up. I think it's hard to argue that they're 3 best, most consistent relievers this year. The 3 guys that you would have turned to in that moment are all on the injured list. So what are you going to do?
No, speaking of that, if you look at the Cardinals have shut a lot of players down to end the year. Like, they just don't, like, why risk, you know? I looked at their lineup tonight. I'm like, wow, Jordan Walker batting 3rd, Richie Palacios, which he helped you guys out a lot in that first game of the series.
He tried to.
He did. You don't recognize, it looks like Memphis came up and played the last month for the Cardinals. It really does when you look up and down the order. But whatever, when you get, and it's new for us, like we don't typically see that. But at least some of the young talent has been able to come up and get a taste of things. So, maybe St. Louis will be in a little bit better position in spring training to know, hey, look, we've let some of these guys have a taste in the major leagues, and they were playing meaningful games, not for us, but at least they were for other teams. So we got maybe a little bit of a litmus test on some of the players, but it's the best you can hope for. The rest of the work is to be done, which we've talked about exhaustively here. They have to go out and get some guys that can throw. There's really nothing left to say about St. Louis. They've shut all the regular players down. Adam Wainwright did hit his 200th win, which his last performance to achieve that was, you have to say, like, he put it all out there, and he got his 200th win, which I didn't think he was going to get, Pete. I didn't think he had a chance.
Neither did I.
But he somehow made it happen. And regardless of what team you root for, like a player like that who's given a lot to charity, community, been just a generally good person. Okay, you got to a milestone there that not many get to. Good for you.
And you know what? I know that that the modern stat heads don't like RBIs, they don't like batting average, and they don't like pitcher wins. But I think
batting average.
But I think that there is something to be said about pitcher wins in that it says that you were able to contribute meaningfully to games in a way that led your team to win. Now, I understand that if you leave the game when it's 9-8 and your team holds on, you get the win. Doesn't matter. You didn't allow that 9th run to score. You were able to contribute in some way.
Well, I think it speaks to longevity too.
Yeah, like it does.
You get to that mark.
When you're talking about those kind of numbers, yeah.
Right. Now, I know getting to 200 was a feat, and it took a couple years, but I don't know. Something's like, okay, he held on for this last year when most of us were looking at each other and going, yeah, he probably should have done it last year. He got to the mark. Numbers are ugly, but he got to it. And, I'm sure at this point, he's shut himself down for the rest of the year. He's not going to pitch the last homestand, come out one last time against Cincinnati. He's not going to do that. Good.
I don't know. You know what? If I'm Ollie, I bring him on one time in relief.
I think
let him get that hometown welcome.
Here's the story. They think they're going to bring him out one last time to pinch hit.
Oh yeah, I did read that.
He always loved hitting, but the Cardinals wanted to respect where Cincinnati was in the standings. Did they have a chance still and all that?
No, they do not.
And they don't. So I think what you'll see in the last series, they'll bring him out to pinch hit one more time.
Okay.
Like he fancies himself a serviceable hitter, kind of like Greg Maddux or Glavine, those guys were. And his first major league hit was a home run. So we'll see.
Well, I mean, his last major league pitch was a curveball, so it'd be appropriate. Be a nice bookend, right?
It'd be appropriate. What I have a feeling is, knowing Adam Wainwright's luck, it's going to be like a
strikeout.
Going to jump out of his shoes on some changeup, some screwball.
Yep.
Yeah. But no, you know what? Good for him. You know, he got 200th win in a meaningless season at this point. So what? No harm, no foul.
Ron, we're going to be talking about the offseason earlier than we ever have. Think about it. This time next week, we'll be done. I mean, with our seasons, right? Baseball will continue, but.
And last year we didn't pick it back up till winter meetings, right? Like I was so gassed from the fall baseball little league that I was coaching. I was like, guys, out of gas. Let's pick it back up. And I'm not saying I'm going to do that this year because things will be over, but yeah, you're right. I mean, there's between our teams, it's nothing to talk about at all. It's thinking about what could have happened for you more so than me.
Yeah.
So I don't know. You guys had a little bit of false hope there in August. You guys were feeling it in August, but
they were, you know, for a while there, they were the hottest team in baseball.
I know.
And it wasn't just for a week, you know, it was that month of August. It was hard to argue that anybody was better, but.
And I wasn't happy for your team. I was happy because I felt I predicted it correctly.
Yes, of course. We all like to be right.
We all love. Is there anything we like more than being right? That's a poll question. We should just put it out on Twitter or X.
I think we know the answer to that one.
Well, the 4 responses we'll get will say yes.
Yes.
Anyway, I would love to talk to you about other things that I know you're boycotting right now, but I think you might want to look at your inbox at some point in time tomorrow. I might gift you something to force you to watch something that we can actually talk about on the show over the next few weeks, because baseball is going to suck because we're going to
this is true. I know, because it's going to be an inevitable march of the Braves to the World Championship.
But you know what? You've seen them, right? Like, even given gifts, they always put themselves in a situation to capitalize on it. Now, those are the best teams. And you look at the Braves, like, hey, you know what? The Cubs fucked it up. They dropped a fly ball. They put them back into it. But, you know, you look inning or two before that, they kept letting the Braves get closer and closer and closer. And good teams just do that. They get themselves in a situation, put the ball in play, and see what happens. And that's what the good teams do. And you can't deny, like, the Braves put themselves in a situation to make a team make a mistake.
Yep.
Get them back into the game. That's what happens. That's how they do it.
And we talked about this, you know, back in, what was it, in August or July, when the Braves were in Chicago and the Cubs took 2 out of 3. And still we talked about it. And I said, my God, they're relentless. You just look at that lineup and you're like, oh my God, this guy's legit. This guy's legit. Like,
there's no break.
No, there's no break. Orlando Arcia is the break in that lineup, and he's not an easy out.
Well, even since then, the Cardinals had taken 2 out of 3 from the Braves in a series in Atlanta. But it didn't matter.
Right.
I mean, there's no break for the pitcher. Nothing.
No. Brutal. And totally appropriate. We should have gotten her on the show tonight. Because I'm sure she's happier than a pig in shit. I am sure is celebrating because her team clinched the AL East. Her other team clinched the AL East tonight.
Her other bird team, yes.
I mean, look, if you had asked us at the beginning of the season what was more likely, the Cardinals finishing last in the Central or the Orioles winning the AL East,
I think we'd have had to say the Orioles winning the AL East would have been more likely than
the
Cardinals last. Absolutely.
Who would have thought that both would happen?
And by 5 games.
Yeah.
At least. I don't know what the Pirates have done tonight, but like the Cardinals they clinched last place like 3 or 4 nights ago.
Yeah. They are solidly in last place. This is not in doubt at all.
Locked it up.
They did. They locked it up early. That's the good thing about it.
But, you know, on all the Facebook groups, which I still participate in, because those are actually more valuable than Cardinals fan groups, like the whole Central Fight, Midwest Fight Club, because there's plenty of shit that's talked about the Bears and Packers on there too. the Cardinals getting eliminating themselves officially from the playoffs or whatever, like that came and went, and like everybody's so like over it at this point. Like everybody's danced on the graves and celebrated months ago. That deadline came and went, and like you didn't hear a peep about it.
Nope.
Cardinals officially eliminated. Yeah, I'm like, well, we kind of fucking knew that in June.
Hey, speaking of it, you mentioned it. We watched a bad football game together when I was there.
Man.
He looked even worse this week.
Yeah, so we're transitioning to Bears talk, which is I'm so glad I dropped the money on Sunday Ticket this year.
Yeah, that was an interesting bet. You got to take. Hey, look, Ron, the house always wins.
I was just hoping to get a little bit more entertained by football this year, and that is clearly not going to happen. I mean, yeah, he's gotten worse, and
he has.
But it's not just him, Pete. It feels like the entire team, every aspect of the game, defense. Is ranked at the bottom of the league.
Yeah.
In yards allowed. Receiving core sucks. Running game sucks. I mean, you just can't point to anything, any kind of hope there. So this can't all hang on the neck of a quarterback, can it?
Well, it can't, but I think in a certain way it can, but it's not. I mean, ultimately it's not his fault. There was I'm blanking on the guy's name, but he was one of the.
How can you regress so bad in 1 year when he's still the same person? But what changed?
Well, what has changed is that I don't know. Josh Lucas was on Parkins and Spiegel, I think it was yesterday, and he was talking about it. It was really interesting. I watched a video of it. Long story short, he said that their plan in year one for Justin Fields was for him to never see the field, or if he did, it was going to be in mop up, right? That was why they had brought in Andy Dalton, that he was going to be the sacrificial lamb so that Justin Fields could learn. And then Dalton gets hurt 2 years ago.
Last year.
No, 2 years ago. Remember, Dalton got hurt, and then Justin Fields got thrown in against the Browns in the third game of the season, and he took 9 sacks. And Josh Lucas said it completely destroyed everything, and he speculates that it has destroyed Justin Fields because your first game action, you're not ready for the speed of the NFL, and you just get drilled and drilled and drilled, and all of a sudden you develop. Right, he probably does have a little bit of the shakes. He can't trust his offensive line. The game moves too fast for him, and it's all developed out of that very first game where he just got destroyed.
It feels like that effect people get like when they go to a pistol range, right? When you're trying to learn how to fire a pistol, but you cannot possibly not anticipate the recoil and move your wrist back,
right?
So you miss the target every time.
Yeah.
But that's what the situation reminds me of. Like you can't shake it. Like you always, like it's always going to be there. Yeah. I mean, this position that the Bears have been able to pin down, like to at least make an adequate choice on for trade through anything has just been, it's just been baffling, man. And that's $300, Pete. I'll never get it back.
No,
I'll never get it back.
Well, and Ron, it kind of nicely parallels the Bears, right? Because those are several millions of dollars and picks that they're never getting back.
And I agreed to pay for them this year.
Yeah. I think I read something this week, and I don't remember where I read it, but they made the point that part of the problem. It was Colin Cowherd. He basically said that Justin Fields got screwed and that the reason that the Bears have never developed a quarterback is because of the identity that they've become so synonymous with, right? They're known for defense. They're known for being a grinded out kind of team. And so because they're still owned by the same management that's attached
to a big play,
right? They're attached to that identity. And so they haven't modernized. And I think that's, I think you can probably make a good case for that, right? Like,
yeah,
they're never going to develop a quarterback until they hire until they hire a head coach, and he can't be a first-time head coach. You can't go the Matt Eberflus, Matt Nagy, Lovie Smith. You can't go the hot coordinator.
Eberflus too is like they hired a defensive coordinator.
Right. Yeah, exactly. They're going to have to bite the bullet. They're going to have to pay money to get a big name coach who's coached before, who's known for working with quarterbacks. And then part of the deal is we're drafting a quarterback in the first round. We're drafting because we're going to have the first pick again. We're going to draft a quarterback in the first round.
First 5.
Yeah, they probably are. They're probably going to have 2 picks in the top 5.
They should not hire John Mazalek.
No, they should not.
No, kidding. He does a great job in draft. Regardless, I don't want to get the sports roster. Yes, we're very focused on the Bears, and it's very frustrating. They just cannot even adequately choose at this position. And Pete, it does make me wonder. I mean, we watched the game out here briefly when you were here. You know, does he have a processing problem downfield? Can he just not do it? Are they asking him to be too robotic and too automatic and not rely on instincts and legs? But you look at how often he's run today, even plays that are designed to have him run, and you see an absence of all of it. So I don't know how much of this is actually on him or the game plan this year. It's hard to pin down, but one thing you can't deny is like teams are just having their way with the Bears, and they have had it 3 games in a row. And now they're going to play a team this weekend that gave up 70 points to Miami, which I think is wonderful, by the way, that the Dolphins scored 70 points. Who doesn't love this? But the Bears are 3.5-point underdogs.
At home.
Just gave up 70 points.
3.5 at home.
At home.
Which means that Vegas is looking at them at a neutral site as a touchdown dog.
Yes.
That they should be ashamed.
This has hit rock bottom.
Yeah, it has. And Ron, let's not oversell it. They haven't lost 3 games in a row. They've lost 13 games in a row.
Since October of last year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
this is not good.
Matt Nagy last week could smile all he wanted to from the other side of the field. But you know what? You were part of this shit mess, man. Yeah. You were a thing, and somebody scooped you up and put you on a winning team, Super Bowl winning defending champions, and scooped you up over there. So don't look across the field like you accomplished anything. You didn't.
Yeah, look down the sideline and thank Andy Reid for giving you a job again.
Yep. Thank you, Daddy.
Yes.
That should have been the face he made.
Yep, absolutely.
Fuck you, Matt Nagy, and fuck you, Ryan Pace.
Yeah, I think that's about the right attitude to go out on here. I think that's a great way to end it. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to leave a comment and subscribe. If you want to help spread the word, please give us a 5-star review and tell your friends to do the same. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. And we also occasionally live stream on Rumble, Facebook, and YouTube. Be sure to check out.
Not
likely. You're right. Be sure to check out the other Gateway City Sports Network podcasts. I'm not even going to list them because who knows. You can find Elliott on X at @TR_Elliott. And also, here's the interesting thing. You could find him waiting to get on early. We were so caught off guard by it. Elliott was the first one on the Zoom. And then by the time you got on, he just gave up. Anyway, you can find Ron on X at TR_Ron75. Get in touch with us at the show at teamarivalspodcast.com or on any social media channel at Team Arrivals Pod. There's no more fitting way to end this season than fuck you, Matt Nagy, and fuck you, Ryan Pace. I think that just about sums it up.
It's the most articulate way I could put it.
Brilliant.
All right. Well, thanks, Pete, for taking us out once again. I would love to say we'll be back on same time, same place next week, but I've got 2 more weeks of shit show Little League sports left. So we'll see. We'll be back on when we feel like it, and when we can produce the best thing we possibly can for all of you, because we love you so much. Bye-bye, everyone.